Hello my friends and welcome back to my channel. So today I have some recommendations for you that are romances that have a strong found family element in them. These are some of my favorite romances. I think that romance books in particular lend itself really well to building a strong found family, because a lot of what we're talking about in romance is finding love with other people who aren't your blood, you know? So I just feel like this is something that is always very appealing to me. I love the concept of people coming together and finding a family together, and these books are some of my favorites that I think do that particularly well. Some of these books are in series, some of them are standalone, some of them are in the middle of the series, and I do feel like you could read these books out of order if you really wanted to, but because this is a recommendation video for found family romances, I think you would enjoy it more if you read the whole series from the beginning. I just picked some of my favorites, or books that I haven't talked about individually recently. So the first book that I want to mention is one of my all-time favorite historical romances, and it is Brazen and the Beast by Sarah MacLean. This romance knocked my socks off the first time that I read it. I'm trying to find a place to highlight this that is not, let's see, can I come over this way? I don't know if that's better. I hope it is. I'm filming this later in the day, and so the sun is like right over there, and every time I start talking, little Miss Wanda can hear me and she's gonna bark, so I deeply apologize for that. Anyway, okay, Brazen and the Beast by Sarah MacLean. When I first read this historical romance, it blew my mind because this whole series is called the Bare Knuckle Bastard series, and it's about four siblings who were all basically the son of a duke, but only one of them is the legitimate son, or that will be his heir. And so there was kind of like this battle between them when they were children, as the duke was trying to decide who was going to be his best replacement. So one of them sort of split off and was the one to make a power move to be that heir, and that sort of resulted in a rift between them when they were very young. So two boys and a girl separated and went to sort of fend for themselves in Covent Garden and became powerful crime lord bosses. Not necessarily criminal, but like the underbelly of London, you know? So in this book we have Beast Wit, who is our hero. He is known as the Beast in Covent Garden. He is a very powerful man. He is a boxer who is basically undefeated, and he is the most handsome man that Hattie, our heroine, has ever seen in her life. And she first meets him because he is tied up in her carriage. It's one of the most adorable and amazing meet-cutes in the entire world, and I loved it so much. Hattie is a plus-size heroine, and I think her representation is done beautifully here. But the thing that I love the very most about this book in particular is Hattie is on a journey of trying to find a year, she calls it the year of Hattie, where she's trying to have just a year of pleasure and self-indulgence. So she's actually on her way to a brothel when she sees Wit tied up in her carriage, and she basically kicks him out. When he finds out that she's going to find a night of pleasure, he's very intrigued, and they work up a deal where he will offer up his services for her. And it is very, very, very steamy. Their connection is undeniable. I love how romantic this hero is. I love how he has these books in his room, these memories of his mother. They have an excellent connection. And I love getting to see the characters from the first book, and then there's one book after this that really highlights this as an excellent found family romance. Okay, the next book that I want to talk about is The Perks of Loving a Wallflower by Erica Ridley. This is part of the Winchester family series. This is the second book in the series, but you could read this as a standalone. This is also a sapphic romance, and it is absolutely beautiful. It was one of my favorite books of last year. So the Winchester family are basically a bunch of adopted children that have been banded together, and they sort of are like this group who puts, like, it's almost like they fight crime, but they don't technically fight crime. So Thomasina is one of the heroines in this book, and she is like a master of disguise, and she can disguise herself as a man or a woman, all these different characters, and she is having a new job right now where she is helping Lady Philippa, who is a bluestocking, she's the other heroine, helping her stop this man from taking credit for translating an ancient manuscript as his own work when Philippa knows that it's not his. And when Thomasina meets Philippa, Philippa believes Thomasina to be a man, believes her to be Tommy. So Philippa is an interesting heroine because she believes that she can't love, that she doesn't have any desire. She's not attracted to dukes or gentlemen at all. She's never felt any kind of butterflies for them. So when she finds out that Thomasina is a woman, she's so relieved because she doesn't have this man trying to court her. Thomasina, however, has been pining after Philippa for a very long time, and they have a beautifully, slowly building romance that is just stunning, and I loved it so much. I think the Winchester family is done so well as a found family aspect. I love how they're all sort of adopted and that they have this common purpose and they just have really great banter, and it's just a delightful family. Okay, the next book of found family romances that I have is the Necessary Evils series. This is actually the second book. This is Psycho. This is a very interesting series. It's pretty dark. It is all about this scientist who went and found these boys who were displaced from their homes. Maybe they were orphaned or they were in bad situations, who all showed markers for being like psychopaths. And he takes them, adopts them, and into his own family with the intention of creating basically a group of Dexters who go out to bring justice to people who escape the justice system. So this book is actually my favorite in the series. I've only read the first two. This has August, who is not only brilliant, but also a psychopath. He is also a professor at a university, and the other hero in this book, this is also an MM romance. They all are in the series. The other hero is a man who is an ex-FBI agent who also finds himself working at the university, and he is actually clairvoyant also. So he sort of let it show or let it slip that he believes himself to be clairvoyant, and that's how he was let go from the FBI. So their romance is amazing. I love the connection of these couples, and I dearly, dearly love the found family aspect in this series. Okay, and the next book that I have is not in a series, but it is one of my favorite found families, and it is Love at First by Kate Claiborne. I love this book so much. This book is a very cozy, comforting read to me. The emotional aspect in the relationship does have some angst, but the overall concept of the book feels pretty low angst. And I love this so much because this also starts with them being like having this moment as children where they really felt this connection, and that kind of carried over into their adulthood. So when they meet again, they're like shook that this was that person. But the romance really begins in this book later on when our hero Will ends up inheriting this apartment building, which is where he first met our heroine. He meets her there later on when he inherits it, and it takes him a while to realize that she was the young girl that left such an impression on him when he was a kid. So his plan is to come into this apartment and fix it up, sell it, and just get rid of it because it has a lot of like bad memories associated with him and his family. But what he doesn't take into account is that our heroine Nora actually has a really strong emotional connection there, and she has this beautiful found family with all of the other tenants there, many of whom are elderly. It is such a beautiful found family, and watching her fight to keep this apartment building so they all have homes, while at the same time falling in love with Will, was just so beautiful. I loved their connection. There's a beautiful caretaking scene in here too. This book is just such a gem. It's underrated. I don't hear anybody talking about it, and I just loved it. I felt like it was so swoony and sweet and romantic, and just a beautiful found family with the apartment tenants. It was just perfection. Okay, the next book that I have to recommend is actually a series, and I do feel like this one specifically is better read as a series, and it's the Clifton Forge series by Devney Perry. So this is a small town romance, but it's also a motorcycle club romance, and I think that small town romances really lend themselves to found family, although most of them, or a lot of them, are just family and brothers and whatever, finding couples. But this one was really good because there are a lot of people outside of the motorcycle club who come in there, and then they form this really tight-knit family. So this is the beginning of the series, and we have our heroine who comes to Clifton Forge. She's a reporter, and she is tired of just reporting on all these very mundane things. Like, she doesn't want to do baby announcements or anything like that anymore. She wants something to report on. So she finds out that, well, the whole town finds out that a girl has been murdered, and it sort of rocks the town. And she takes it upon herself to try and investigate and find out what happened, because she doesn't believe the story that's been told, and she thinks that there's something going on at the garage where the motorcycle club guys work. She thinks there's something there that they're not telling her. So she meets Dash, who actually is the son of the motorcycle club owner, at that garage, and they sort of they butt heads a lot. They have really great banter. She's kind of constantly putting up a little fight with him, and he's sort of easing back because he's very attracted to her, and they have excellent chemistry. They have a great kiss. This has great suspense, a little bit of, not a ton of suspense, a little bit of suspense, a little bit of mystery as you're trying to figure out who the murderer is. And it was just absolutely delightful. And I think this whole series reads really well as having this great found family that they didn't know who each other was before the Motorcycle Club happened. Okay, and the last book that I have is also a series that you do need to read in order, but the thing I love about this series, one of the things I love about this series, it's the Kingmaker series by Sophie Lark, is the found family aspect, specifically in this school. So this whole series is about a mafia school that is, you know, far across the sea. They have to travel there by boat to get there, the kids. And the kids come from mafia families to learn their roles in the mafia. So you have people who are going to be like enforcers, you have people who are going to be spies, you have people who are going to be accountants, and then you have people who are going to be like bosses. So all of these kids show up there, and they end up forming these really tight connections, not only because they're on this island at this school together, but because of all of the things that they endure there, some really hard things that happen at the school, a mysterious plot, some violence that happens, and they just sort of band together at this time in their life. It's also new adult. When they're very young, they've just left their home, their family, and they're making these connections for the first time in their life outside of being at home and high school and all that stuff. So new adult is something that typically doesn't work for me anymore, but I really loved this series in particular. I feel like the romances in it are strong, but I also feel like the overarching plot is really strong in this series, and the friendships are beautiful and wonderful, and I just feel like if you love characterization, if you love sort of a fast-paced, intriguing plot, and also, of course, steamy romances, the third book in this series, The Bully, is probably one of the most well-known steamy bully romances, which I dearly loved, of all time. But this series is just fantastic, and if you really love sort of misfit kids banding together, not even kids, like adults, I think you would enjoy this series. It's just fantastic, and this romance specifically, Leo and Anna's, is very well done, and I loved it so much. It's also a childhood friends to lovers, so. Alright, there you have it. I dearly apologize for Wanda barking. I don't know what her deal is lately, but thank you so much for watching, and if I had more time, I would refilm this video when she wasn't barking, but I appreciate you watching. Thank you so much, and I'll see y'all in my next video.